So today I borrow millions of dollars tax-free. I buy these apartment houses. They're 100% financed. And I've done this most of my life. I have no equity into the property. And the more I use bank money, OPM, the less I pay in taxes. Then I get things like depreciation, amortization, and those other tax incentives because I provide large apartment houses because the government needs housing for people. Also, I get tax incentives for oil production. I don't buy oil stocks. Like I would never touch Exxon or BP shares. What I want is a percentage of the production. So when the prices of oil go up, I make more money. It goes down, I still make money. Because the moment, let's say I invest $100,000 in oil production, I get a 28% return on my capital instantaneously.
Tell you what, stay there. Let's continue to quantify this with Robert Kiyosaki of RichDad.com. I'm Alex Jones of PrisonPlanet.com. Stay with us.
Do you understand how dark it is? How far down the line we are? How late it is?
Robert Kiyosaki is our guest. Robert, for the average person who can't buy oil well operations or drilling operations, the average person who can't buy big apartment houses, and most people actually know in Austin who've done well over time, that's exactly what they do. What does the average person start doing to get in the right quadrant?
That's a great question. My whole shtick is why don't we have financial education in our schools? You see, that's where it starts, and that's where the brainwashing begins. You talk about InfoWars.
When I was in public school, that's all they taught me was how great 401ks. I'm sorry, you said that's where the InfoWars starts.
No, it's like, the NEA, the National Education Association, Forbes calls them the National Extortion Association. And they really are agents of the ultra-rich to prevent people from knowing how the tax and debt systems work. So all I did was having a rich dad who didn't go to school, my best friend's father, he kind of helped me crack the code. And I began to understand why there's no financial education in our schools. Why do they try and control the media all the time? And I got to be very suspicious. And I'm not against our troops, but I went to Vietnam twice, and I realized I was being lied to. And so that's when I kind of woke up and said, okay, I'm going to listen to my rich dad. I'm going to find out what's really going on. So that's all I do. When I write Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I say your house is not an asset. I got hate mail from my friends who are realtors. I didn't say don't buy a house. It says it's not an asset. And in 2002, I wrote Rich Dad's Prophecy, and it was about the biggest stock market crash in history that's still coming, and it's about the 401k. And at that time, the Wall Street Journal, Smart Money, and Money Magazine just hung me up the flagpole, and it was the second crucifixion. It was like, jeez.
I remember.
Yeah, I get crucified by those guys. And then today, our school systems still bring in the bankers and tell you to save money, and they still bring in the financial planners that tell you to put your money in a 401k for the long term. And I'm saying there's another side to that. That's where I make my money, is on ignorance. And all I do in Rich Dad is just say, this is the other side. It's a free country. Make your choice.
Okay, so you're somebody making $200,000 a year, keeping about $100,000 after taxes. What does Robert Kiyosaki do?
I would take a class, in 1973, I took classes on real estate. I don't, residential real estate, I meet these idiots like my accountant. He says, yeah, I'm a real estate investor. I own a house. I said, no, you're a consumer. You're not an investor. No, I'm an investor. But they're such morons. They know nothing about tax code and all this stuff and property management and all the things that make you rich. So I started off back in 1973, a little one-bedroom, one-bath condo on the beach of Maui. And that's where it began. Today I own about 4,000 units, 5 golf courses, luxury hotels, oil production throughout the world, and businesses throughout the world, gold mines and silver mines. But I didn't listen to the school system, and that's the difference.
Well, that's like 10 years ago. They said, do not buy gold and silver. It's a bad investment. They're still saying it. But to 1980 inflation, it's supposed to be $2,500 an ounce.
You should have seen me. I was in 2000 on CNBC, and they said, what are you investing? I said, gold. They said, that's stupid. It's $275 an ounce. I said, that's smart. But they don't want gold to go up, as you know, because it means the fiat currency of the world is going to come apart.
And when it does, gold's going to the moon.
And right now, if you don't have much money, I've been saying this for years because I'm actually a silver buff, silver is the best investment of all because it's a consumable precious metal, whereas gold is hoarded. For the first time in the history of the world, there is more gold than silver on planet Earth. So silver is a bargain, even at $25. And I hear these morons tell me I don't have any money. I said, Jesus, you know, $25, you don't have that, you're in big trouble. Well,
what silver was $5.50, $6 10 years ago. It's at almost 25 an ounce right now. Right. I'd say that's a pretty good investment. And anybody could start buying $1 silver dollar a month. I mean, come on.
Yes, exactly right. And I think silver is the biggest sleeper of all. I've been saying this for years. And, you know, everybody watches gold. I have lots of gold. I have a gold mine in China. I have a silver mine in South America. But silver, because I'm in the industry, I understand who buys my silver. It's industry.
That's right. It's used in manufacturing, you name it.
Water purification, electronics, every computer, every cell phone.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I've read a lot of numbers and statistics. I've seen reports that you know, they're now selling more gold than they are mining each year for the first time. But it's even worse with silver, that they can't find the silver they need to supply.
You're exactly correct. And I'm in the industry. I can tell you that.
Wow. Well, we'll start getting into that. That's really interesting.
Well, it's just really simple. You don't have to go to college for this. Silver is consumed. Silver is like oil. You know, it's burned up. It doesn't come back. So silver is being burned up at higher speeds, and the more we shift to the information age, you know, the more iPads and Apple comes out with that.
It's like lithium in Afghanistan. I mean, we know why we're there.
Oh, amen.
Yeah, lithium mines. I'm sure Robert Kiyosaki will probably be in that. We're going to come back. Long segment coming up. Sorry about that break. We got to go to it. Let's get into why they told us don't buy gold and silver. I mean, they knew. The rich were in there buying it. They wanted it for themselves. We'll be right back. Robert Kiyosaki, best-selling author, researcher, investor, businessman, self-help. He is our guest. We got about 25 minutes left with him. RichDad.com is the website. Robert, continuing with gold and silver, starting out a few decades ago there in your little bungalow in Hawaii, now to owning, you know, major oil drilling operations, gold mine, silver mine, 4,000 plus apartment units, and you know how to basically use the tax system they've written for the elite, where you pay almost no taxes.
Yes. And it's just a matter of financial education. You know, I mean, some guys are running into the hills and joining different, you know, resistance groups. I just decided to become a capitalist and play by the same rules they were playing, because I fought in Vietnam twice for capitalism. I didn't fight for fascism, which we have right now, or socialism. You know, this idea of Robin Hood, you know, you take from the rich and you give to the poor, just creates more poor people. But that's what our school system teaches kids.
They want serfs. They want to give a man fish, not teach him how to fish.
Yes. And we're just mass-producing, mass-manufacturing poor people.
Where do you see
financial education in school is not going to get worse.
Where do you see gold and silver going?
Well, I caution people on gold and silver because, you know, I started when gold was around $265 an ounce, and then I tracked it. I was in gold and silver at 85 back in the 70s. So I watched it go up and down, and the thing they've got to watch out for is interest rates. If this guy Bernanke gets desperate, he jacks interest rates, let's say to 10%, gold and silver crash. So you really just don't buy gold and silver. You've got to understand the dynamics that causes prices to go up or down.
But they're signaling they're going to continue with the lower interest rates and that they're going to hyperinflate the currency. That would be a major indicator of it going up.
It would be, but I don't trust them. I don't, you know, how do you tell when they're lying is when their lips are moving.
So people have got to be ready to dump their gold and silver if the indicators come out.
No, it's not that. It's that I think you and I are holding gold and silver at very, very good prices. But I think what I'm concerned about is the guys that come in when gold's, let's say, passing 3,000. They're the ones who are going to take the hammer. I
tend to agree. That's what I tell listeners just from my gut, is that if inflation to 1980s, $2,500 an ounce, I'm going to start getting real nervous when it gets up there.
Yes, 25 is, I think you're pretty accurate on that. It's time to start pulling in your horns and look at something else. Like right now, I'm actually pulling in my horns on gold. Once it passed the 1,100, it's a little too rich for me. I still bought silver, but now I'm investing in my solar company. So, because I think, you know, like you guys are saying, that's the way it's going to go. So that's where I'm investing.
So you basically look at the trends and hedge your bets throughout the trends and don't just plump your money down in a bank getting almost 0%.
That's correct. And the thing I watch for, I mean, my father, my poor dad was a politician. I don't trust those guys. I mean, I love my dad, but they don't know jack. There is no correlation between politics and business.
Well, wisdom today is buying into whatever the establishment says, and they're there to fleece you.
Right, and the reason I wanted to be on your show is because of InfoWars. I agree 100%. They want to control what you hear and what you think, and they will censor you, and there's no censorship. It's a bunch of bull. You will be censored in this country. So that's the thing I'm saying. You've got to understand that you have to be smarter. You know, what I'm terrified of right now, there's going to be what they call, you know, when it goes parabolic, when gold passes 3,000, and everybody will roll in there, and then they're going to get suckered out again. Happens every time. Happened in real estate a little while ago.
That's what my gut tells me, is when to get out of the bubble at the right time.
Yeah, but also it's not so much when you get out, it's when you get in. And getting in is when your profits are made when you buy. And so you look, all the suckers right now, you know, it's the same thing. I see all of these guys, we buy gold, we buy, you know, turn it in. You know the bubble's coming. And all the suckers will roll into the market.
Well, when you've got 2% of the population in gold, and they're talking about maybe 10% in the next 2 years,
yeah,
that's when you know there's a serious situation. But right. I think there's a long time, and this is my personal view, until they do try to deflate the bubble.
Yeah, and that's why, you know, gold at 13, gold at 15, gold at 2, I would say not a bad buy. But I'd be very cautious, because desperate people do desperate things. I mean, you saw what Bernanke said a few days ago. He says, I don't understand the price movement in gold. I said, Bernanke, you're the guy printing that stuff.
We can also see wild gyrations up and down before it's all over.
Yeah.
So we could see a false popping in the bubble.
I have lots of gold and lots of silver. I'm just cautioning people.
No, I agree.
Don't come in late.
I agree, Robert. You talk about InfoWars. You talk about how we're being lied to. When we look at this military-industrial complex owned by the big Mega-6 banks, they're now openly saying that they're going to start taking pension funds and taxing them. We talked about that. So desperate people do desperate things. At your bottom line, looking into your crystal ball, where do you see society? I mean, do you see this recession, depression getting worse? Where do you see this going? Well, it's all relative. You know, I mean, you know that old saying, if your neighbor loses a job, it's in a recession. If you lose your job, you're in a depression. Mm-hmm. But the other part, where Rich Dad, where I personally stand from, if you understand the rules of the rich, it's really a good time to get rich. You know, I'm not saying being poor is bad. I just don't look good in poor clothing. Yeah, there's ways to make money in any market. Yeah, so if you sit in there listening to what your mommy and daddy told you, you know, was go to school and get a job, work hard, save money, buy a house because it's an asset, and give your money to Wall Street through a 401k, you're probably going to get fleeced. Well, Robert, we're being fleeced. We're honored to have you here today, and I've got a bunch of other questions I want to throw at you in rapid succession. But what's the main knowledge you want to impart to our listeners? I mean, well, basically, you have to understand the rules of the rich. I'm not saying they're good or bad. A lot of greedy poor people, a lot of greedy rich people. But the smarter you are, you don't become a victim to it. I mean, you need to take control. Exactly what Alex Jones is saying. You need to take control of what you put inside your head. You know, if you don't control that, you're screwed. You've got to take control of what you put into your head. So if you listen to this garbage the school system puts out, and politicians put out, and Wall Street puts out, and banks put out, you're going to get hammered. I've seen breakdowns of the average CNBC host with their predictions. They're wrong over 87% of the time. Somebody like yourself and others we have on are right more than 90% of the time. But it's not that a lot of those pundits are stupid. They're there selling a fraud. They know what they're doing. They have to say what they say. If they say what I said or what you said, they'd be fired. It's that simple. I mean, they're not bad people. That's kind of what I'm putting out there. We're not bad people. We haven't taken control of the information in our brain. And there is that lie of advertising that perception's reality. Well, no, if you stumble off a 1,000-foot cliff and you think there's water at the bottom and there isn't, your perception that you saw water at the bottom isn't going to save you. No, I mean, I was just reading this little, was from Smart Money magazine. Those guys really hate me, but anyway.